Good afternoon. First, let me say thank you all for being here. I'm Dr. Javon Adams-Gaston. I'm the Senior Vice President for Student Life here at The Ohio State University, and it is my pleasure and privilege to be able to give you a few words of welcome. I'd also like to thank many of you who have come today, and I'd especially like to thank Karen Kasich, whose husband is the governor. See, I went that way, right? And all of you who are here today and those who invited me to be with you. I'm simply honored to be here and to help introduce today's conversation. Today, we're kicking off the multi-part Director's Dialogue on Art and Social Change. And I would especially like to thank our director, Sherry Geldon, who does just a fabulous job here. And this is a program that I think is really going to be important. It's not going to be easy, but it really has the potential to help us really think about what it means to make change, and particularly social change. It was created by filmmaker and Wright State professor Chinonye Chukwu. And I want to say a little bit about the university and President Drake's vision. If you've been paying any attention to our new strategic plan, one of the things that the president has laid out is that we're highlighting creative expression. And we're highlighting it as a force for, and I'm going to quote this, driving significant advances for critical society challenges. And I think that what you will be able to experience today is precisely what the president hoped we would be able to share in our community. Pens to Pictures deals with addiction, abuse, unemployment, women in prison, prison reform, and reentry to society. They're some of the most troubling issues in our society. And the women we will hear from today and the short films you will see will actually open your eyes to the issues facing women in prison. I was sharing with Sherry and Karen that one of the things that I did in my life, I always say I've had multiple lives, but I was the consulting psychologist to a women's correctional institution for a state. And I had the privilege of working with many women and really knowing firsthand that these issues are never straightforward. They are complex. They involve a variety of societal issues as well as personal issues, but they also make us think about the people and the journeys and how we help turn lives around in ways that allow people to have the opportunity to fulfill their goals in life and their ways of living. These subjects are difficult to confront, and they may be uneasy for people to hear. But for me, that's the beauty and that's the purpose of art. It challenges us, it takes us out of our comfort zone, and it makes us think about how we can shift the frame and see things a little bit differently. How we can see things from other perspectives that help us and encourage us to do things in the world that make a change for those who are a part of our world. It will illuminate critical issues in our society, but it also reminds us of the power of art to raise awareness and to serve as a vehicle of creative expression. I love the Wexner Arts Center, and the reason that I love it is it's right here on campus. It's accessible to every student. Students don't have to pay to come to the galleries. It really allows us an opportunity to say to our students, not only do we think art is important, but with an art institution this world-renowned right here on this campus for students, faculty, staff, and visitors to enjoy. We can change the world, and that's exactly what I see us doing. So I think that while the issues are important and the issues are tough, they get to the core of our humanity. Pens to Pictures gives us an opportunity to think deeply, but also to feel deeply, and then to act. And so after this, after the films that you will see in the panel, you will have an opportunity to join us in the Mershon lobby for what we're calling Take Action. It's a networking opportunity with resources featuring on OSU student organizations and departments. And without further ado, and in great anticipation, I turn the program over to Alana Ryder and Jennifer Lang of the Wexner Center's Education Department. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. J. On behalf of the Wexner Center, Jennifer Lang and I would like to welcome you to the start of something that will last far beyond this afternoon and evening. The 2017 Director's Dialogue on Art and Social Change is a trifecta. We will begin with the 5 shorts created in the inaugural Pens to Pictures course at Dayton Correctional Institution, a program founded by filmmaker Chinonye Chukwu. Before we screen the films, we want to give a content warning, as some include instances of sexual violence and substance abuse. We want everyone to take care of themselves and respect those who may have to step out to do so. Following the shorts, we'll have a chance to meet the directors and talk with Chinonye and Vivian Covington, Assistant Warden at DCI. We'll transition to Take Action, a networking and resources session in Mershon Lobby. Staff from over 15 organizations want to talk to you about everything from reentry programs in Franklin County to a world without prison. At 7 p.m., join us for the Pens to Pictures documentary premiere with panel guests from Ohio State and the Columbus community. To all of you in this room and watching the stream, thank you for being present. Thank you for believing in the power of art in places like this theater, Dayton Correctional Institution, Northeast Center in Cleveland, and beyond. Art has the power to give form and humanity to the invisible. It emerges from the stories that need to be told, pushes us out of the confines of our current understandings of the world, and provokes us to do more. Art shows us what is possible in a world, as one of the directors described, filled with rules and you cannots. To the Pens to Pictures directors, Beverly, Jamie, Kamisha, Amy, and Tyra, this day is entirely because of you and for you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Lang. I'm curator of the Film Video Studio here at the Wexner Center. The road to today's event started over a year ago, actually, when filmmaker and Wright State professor of motion pictures, Chinonye Chukwu, asked if she could use the Film Video Studio's facility for a PSA that she was making in support of a clemency appeal for Tyra Patterson, a woman incarcerated at the Dayton Correctional Institution, but widely acknowledged to be innocent of the crime she was convicted and serving a life sentence for. These types of requests to lend support on a small shoot for a local filmmaker are not necessarily common, but they are one component of what the Wexner's Film Video Studio program offers to filmmakers and artists who are creating new work. When I talk about the program, to anyone really, but especially to artists, I always say there's no one-size-fits-all residency experience. But when Chinonye got in touch with me a few months after shooting her PSA to ask if we would consider supporting her new Pens to Pictures project, little did I know that the studio would be embarking on the single most unconventional residency in its history. You see, filmmakers usually travel to the Wexner Center from as far away as Brazil and from close as Clintonville to take up residence in the studio and work on their films with one of our 2 editors. With Pens to Pictures, our 5 directors were incarcerated at the Dayton Correctional Institution and so unable to actually work here in our studios. So, being the ever-resourceful team that we are, we brought our residency program to them. Our longtime editor, Paul Hill, made bi-weekly and at some point weekly visits to DCI, showing cuts and getting feedback from the directors. At some point, I heard the director started referring to him as Merlin. Is that true? And it is true what they say about the magic of editing, and Paul is indeed an expert editor. But I think every single one of the directors, Miss Covington of DCI and Chinonye would agree that behind the magician is one of the most kind, patient, dedicated, and unflappable human beings ever, period. For his work on the 5 films and the documentary that you'll be watching tonight, I'd like to thank Paul Hill, but he's actually still working on the documentary right now, which is really a testament to the perseverance and unflappability. But seek him out if you can, and tell him thanks. And I know the ladies all have a soft spot in their hearts for him. It takes a pretty grand institutional effort to pull off a day of events like this one. The staff at the WEX, from marketing to development to house management, embrace this program wholeheartedly from the start. And I'd like to thank each and every one of them for their efforts. In addition, I'd like to thank all the funders of today's events, Lisa Cordes and the United Way, Java Kittrick and the Puffin Foundation, Gail V. King, and Kathy Chapin-Kobacker. Please stay after the films, when we'll be joined on stage by Vivian Covington, Chinonye Chukwu, and some of the inspiring, beautiful women of Pens to Pictures. And now, enjoy the films. Thank you. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Chinonye Chukwu.
I'd like to bring up the filmmakers. So if Jamie and Beverly can please come to the stage. Jamie is the writer-director, and Beverly is the writer-director of Devastating Game. Hey, Tyra! Can you hear me? Yes! 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 This is Tyra Patterson, the writer-director of Love or Loyalty. We love you, Tyra! Yes, yes. And then I would like to also bring to you the writer and director of For They Know Not, Amy, and the writer-director of Bang, Kamisha. If we can give them a standing ovation, please, the filmmakers of Pens to Pictures. I would also like to bring out our project coordinator and the warden's assistant at Dayton Correctional Institution, the woman who really helped to make this all happen, Miss Vivian Covington. Tyra, how you doing? Can we hear? Can we hear her? Tyra, you got them? I don't think your mic. Is my mic?
Can you hear me? I love you, girls.
Tyra! Did you speak? Tyra, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes!
I love you, girls.
We love you, Tyra! Tyra is
Stop it before y'all make me cry.
So Tyra, we're gonna participate in a Q&A with the audience, and we're just gonna have a conversation about this Pens to Pictures journey. You ready?
I am.
Awesome, ladies, you ready?
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll just before we begin, I just wanted to give you just very brief background. This journey started really in September of 2015 when I proposed this idea of a screenwriting class and the making of one film to Miss Vivian Covington and Warden Jackson, who's also here, at Dayton Correctional Institution. But this really started with Tyra Patterson. I was working with her team on her case, and that is what I was seeing Tyra frequently in Dayton Correctional Institution, and I looked around the facility and I just had this idea of helping other women tell their stories. And so in September 2015, I pitched this idea, and the warden and Miss Vivian Covington loved it. And it was actually Miss Covington who suggested all women in the program make their own films. At first, I thought it was just going to be just one, because I didn't think I had the mental or emotional capacity to do 5, but we did it, and it has been a year plus journey. We started the screenwriting class in March 2016, and the phenomenal women that you see here before you took college-level screenwriting courses, directing courses, pre-production, production courses. We shot the films with a team of co-directors and a crew of about like 30 plus people, many of whom came from Wright State, whoop, whoop. And we shot them on the outside, and then the ladies worked with Paul Hill from the Wex, to edit the films and finish the films, and we've been screening the films around the country, and here we are. Woo! So I guess we're going to start by opening it up to questions.
Or maybe, can I ask the first question?
Please.
Could everyone just introduce themselves and
I'm
say
so sorry. I'm so
a couple of
excited.
words?
Yeah, please.
I am Jamie Oakes, and I'm the writer-director of Transparent.
I'm Beverly Fears, and I'm the writer and director of The Devastating Game.
Amy Wisman, writer-director of For They Know Not.
Kamisha Thomas, writer-director of Bang.
Vivian Covington, Warden's Assistant at Dayton Correctional Institution, and the project coordinator. I just got that title.
And Tyra, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Tyra Patterson, the writer-director of Love for Dorothy.
Yeah, I think we can, if everyone could just wait until they get the mic to ask their questions, because we are streaming.
Hi, the films are amazing. Thank you for making them. They're really all very powerful. So I just want to jump right into the midst of the process. My big question as I watched the films was the process of going from screenplay to filming to production. And I know that sort of totally leapfrogs the writing process. I apologize, but that's the thing that I was super curious about.
So basically talking about production, how the films were actually...
Moving from pen to picture, literally.
I mean, do y'all ladies want to answer that, or... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, me specifically?
Sure, Amy, why not?
So after we had our screenplays finished and they were ready to go, we did a couple of months of pre-production. So we did our director script breakdown, and we learned about shots. Some of us didn't have as much to learn as others. And then we auditioned actors, and we got to watch that footage, and we were super brutal. And we had some rehearsals with actors that we directed them, and then we got to meet our awesome co-directors that Chinonye paired us all up with, like, perfectly. And I don't know, there's more to say, but go ahead.
Well, that was pretty much it. We went through hours of audition footage. We went through hours of learning the different pieces of pre-production or production, like the lining of the script. Like, I never knew anything about lining a script, so that was new to me, where you have to make sure you have coverage for every shot. So that was interesting and fun, a little bit of a headache. We learned about shots, and we learned giving direction to our actors, and we learned basically everything that Chinonye teaches at Wright State over the course of, I don't know, several semesters. We learned it in like a few months, so it was a bit overwhelming sometimes for some of us.
You have to have them.
That your dad taught you. Your dad taught you a lot sitting here. How much of that did you do that came into play?
There was a lot that I already knew. Some of the ladies didn't have the experience that I had, because I was prior to this, I was involved in like video production. You know, I've done commercials and performances, etc. But yeah, my dad taught me a lot, and so I got to use most of that what I knew as far as editing. But I didn't do the editing myself. Most of that came into play when I was directing Paul on how to edit my film.
Hi, thank you so much for the films that you've brought to the screen. I think bringing it to Columbus, Ohio is very special. There's an opiate crisis in Dayton. There are also just the prison complex, industrial complex that's happening nationwide and globally that I think we should talk about. But I kind of want to go from your experience. A lot of the movies talked about there was trauma, and it was also centered around womanhood. And I'm wondering, this is a very broad question, but where that inspiration came from those stories, whether that was something that you dealt with or that you've heard other women deal with, and how does that relate to maybe your experience being incarcerated? If that's something you're willing to answer.
Well, I could, I guess, start, but I think we all kind of have our own answers for that. I know that there's a common theme through all the films of a feeling of rejection and being kind of ostracized from family or loved ones, and in a lot of cases, society once you have been incarcerated. Pain is pain, and everybody can understand that, so it's kind of what you do with it, and we're trying to take some negative experiences and learn from them and make them positive and turn that into growth and inspire people. So we really, well, for me personally, I hope that's what happens as a result of sharing this personal stuff with everybody in the world. So.
And for me, my inspiration, a lot of it came from maybe some life experiences and some life experiences, but also a little fiction mixed in with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what to add to that. I think what they said is a good answer. It's just obviously based on our personal experiences and then just fictionalized where we needed to or wanted to. And I think Penn's Pictures for us has been kind of like sort of a coming of age kind of tale in a way, I guess.
Well, my question will be directed toward the Assistant Warden, Ms. Covington. First of all, I applaud you ladies, and I thank God for your courage and the inspirational, including you, beautiful girl there. Yes.
You hear her, Tyra?
Yeah, that was for you.
Yes, I hear her.
You were, well, it's a thing of for other women too that are incarcerated. Your boldness and your courage and it's inspirational, and your life story actually is informing so many, those that are not even incarcerated. So you don't have to be incarcerated to feel pain, like you said. You don't have to be incarcerated to be rejected, like you said. But thank God also for the film producer, Ms. Chinonye Chukwu, for taking the bull by the horns. My question actually is, Ms. Covington, what do you think, what do you see? Because this particular production is like first in the penal, in Ohio, in our penal institutions. So do you think that this is a pilot show, a pilot program, and doors will be open subsequently so that you give other women, opportunities so they can be heard and be seen, and maybe something can be done in our laws to make sure that, because there are certain things that, maybe the laws could come in and step in and help us in our social justice / criminal justice system. So do you see this as a pilot program? Will others follow?
I absolutely do. I think this is unprecedented. I don't know of any other prison in the country who has done this project at all. So yeah, I do think it is a pilot, and I can see it represented in juvenile system, in the men's facilities, and across the country, actually. I'm just proud that it is a pilot, and I want to be involved in. Actually, we're collecting short stories right now of some of the women at Dayton Correctional Institution to start this all over again. I don't know if we'll get through it. No, we will. We will. It's grueling, but it's worth it. It's really well worth it.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your courage. My question to you is, we've seen this now as an audience. What would you ask that we do now? Are there particular forms of support that we can provide now after seeing your films?
Tyra, do you have an answer to that question, or do you want one of the other ladies to answer? Because you have.
Well, I personally feel that people can get involved because we will return to society, and 2 of our ladies have already returned, and we want to be somebody, and we don't want to not be heard or be seen anymore. So I think that just being involved, being there where you are right now, supporting us is taking a stand and a step towards the right direction. So I think you're already doing it.
And if I could add to that, I think just take with you the awareness that you have, because everybody's situation was different. All of our stories were inspired by, our lives, and they were different. So just take with you the awareness and just try to be conscious of situations that you may see and be able to change at one point or another.
Can I add?
Yeah, sure. It is.
My thought on that is like all of these films, I think for us are like humanity. So when people are like talking about social problems, like remember that you're talking about people that have actual lives and families, and there's like a greater impact. And I think that's what really gets lost, especially about incarceration, especially about women, because like we're mothers. We have children, we have families, we have lives, and we have to reintegrate back into that. And we need community support, but like when you hear it on the news, there's a really tough focus on crime and punishment, or there's a really strong focus on the opiate epidemic, and you forget that like these are people. So just remember that these are people.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. You have obviously changed a lot of lives by being able to do this, but I was curious how your lives have changed, or how maybe you view yourself differently, or you've learned something about yourself.
Tyra, did you want to answer that question?
Yes, I'll answer. For me, it gave me a boost of self-confidence because Chinonye came into the institution, took a chance on us, and gave us opportunity, and here we are. So I think it gave us all something to look forward to. Most of us never had a life outside of prison or experiences as such. So I think it gave us self-confidence.
Yes, it's actually given me more of a drive, more enthusiasm, more purpose to go forward in any of my dreams or aspirations. I probably, unlike everybody up here, I almost didn't even write a story or do a short film, but thanks to Kamisha and her assumption that I was going to write one is really what pushed me to writing one. So it's really just taught me that there is worth and value in me, and that somebody might want to see that, or it might inspire someone else.
For me, it was a sense of accomplishment. Like before prison, I didn't complete a lot of things, and this was, I completed something, and it turned out better than I thought it would. So I just appreciate the opportunity, and I was not forceful at all in making Beverly write a story. I just encouraged her a little bit.
I mean, if I could add to that, I mean, I want to say that every single person here, including you, Tyra, have changed my life. I mean, Tyra, you are joy personified. You have been one of the most transformative presence in my life for a lot of different reasons, and this would not have happened without you. And I know that your energy is what's felt in the group every single week, and I know it motivated a lot of us. And you have been one of my greatest examples of joy, and so that is how you changed, my life. And it was. I mean, I'm this is kind of the elephant in the room. It's like, I mean, it was tough, like continuing in DCI without Tyra physically being there, but we every week felt your presence and your energy, and that is how much you are loved, and how much you've impacted us and helped keep us going. So I do want to say that, and with all of, absolutely, and everyone here changed my life. You've taught me how to live my life with purpose and with intention, and to root my joy in purpose and intention. And so thank you so much. It's changed my life, absolutely changed my life.
Chinonye, I want to say thank you also because you have come and taken a chance on us, and you helped change our life as well. And we need that. We need that because we are in abnormal circumstances, and for somebody to advocate for us is big, and it's huge, and it's needed. You saved lives because of it. So thank you. And thank you, my girls up there.
Love you.
I miss y'all. Okay.
Miss you too.
I know you probably hear this 1,000 times, but thank you again for sharing your stories. So I am a graduate student here at Ohio State, and for my dissertation and for my research for the center that I work at, I will be actually interviewing previously incarcerated men and women. And so stories are definitely important, and I definitely believe that. And so I'm just wondering, because I study a lot about males in incarceration, but not often do you get to hear the stories about women who were incarcerated. And so I'm just wondering, what do you feel would be important to ask, or things that maybe I should highlight or look into as far as kind of talking to them and getting their stories? And even when I get to the process of analyzing their stories, because I will be the person kind of analyzing their voice for them, what should I maybe do or not do or try to consider when trying to represent someone else's voice?
That's deep. Damn. I think we could probably all talk all day about that.
Yeah.
I think with women, the first thing is like, and as a graduate student, I'm sure you're super aware, but like women still wake up every day into a system of oppression. So long before a woman is ever incarcerated, there's a whole series of things that they experience. And so I think the really interesting thing to look at are like, what are the ways that you were incarcerated before you were incarcerated? Like, what jail were you in first? Because there's a first jail. Oh, thanks. And then what jail are you going back into? What didn't change? Because I think we all changed a lot, like while we were incarcerated, but then you still have to get back out, and still, most people walk into essentially the same circumstance they left or worse. So just that experience, I think, is really important, and it's different for women. It just is. I mean, even the most educated woman still doesn't get paid as much. So then you add a felony to that, or you add skin color to that, or you add children to that. It gets deep really fast.
I would also add recognizing your own privileges that you embody. I mean, that's definitely, we've had conversations, very explicit conversations about that, and it's something that I know that I grappled with as somebody who was not incarcerated going into this space, and what is it like knowing that at the end of each class I go home and you don't, and it was like there's always that kind of like awkward kind of emotional moment or in the beginning, I think that there was like that moment that we had to unpack. And so it's like I had to interrogate, what are the privileges that I embody and that I'm bringing into this? My class privilege, the fact that I don't have a felony record. What are, and interrogate it and learn and know to shut up. Like, I mean, I listen and I try to listen. I know I talk a lot sometimes, but I try to listen and recognize that you're not giving anybody a voice. You are not, everybody has a voice, and you are creating a platform for that voice to be heard. And so I think contextualizing your research in that way would help.
Also, I want to add to her question is be transparent, be who you are, and allow them to trust you and open up to them as well. And you can gain a lot of trust with the felons or the inmates that you are willing to work with.
Hello, my name's Steven. I work with David Singleton, who sends his greetings. He's sorry he couldn't be here today. And I'm really grateful for your stories. I want to go right off, actually, the very last thing you said, Chinonye, of you're not giving voice, but that you are opening a door, getting out, creating a stage and getting off of that stage for someone else to speak, which David does really well. He's a lawyer that represented some of the folks here and is trying to help people, help Tyra, as many people know. I'm wondering, though, you may know, actually, in going to the, I think it was Amy, I'm sorry, who said about being in a jail before and after. That's my part in that office. David does a lot of that heroic individual representation. I work a lot on the system, policy stuff. If you had a magic wand, and I would ask this to each of you, to at least make fewer bars, maybe not solve all of them, but what would it take to have fewer women in prison, I guess? What would it, to before and after? We know that there's just way too many women. It's the fastest growing part of Ohio's prison population. What would it take to stop that? And I'm just going to give you a magic wand to do anything. I mean, obviously this process has been a creative brain stretcher, so be creative. Like, where would you go with that? How far, how deep, how wide?
I mean, you don't want me to start, really? I've been holding on. I think that policies do need to change. I mean, we're an evolving, everybody's evolving constantly, the world. And right now, I think that a huge thing that I notice, it is self-esteem and people, knowing your worth and being able to express yourself. And I can only speak really for myself and what I've witnessed with women, so it might not be the same across the board, but a lot of times people are silenced and they don't, you're taught at a young age, there's that old school values of be seen and not heard and things like that. And I don't know that I'm not really into magic, I'm into practical application of things that, that we can act, that are tangible, that we can do. And I think really Tyra, I know she wants to get involved with policies and things like that, and she's put a lot of effort and work and of her emotional energy into studying like literacy for children and writing things down. She might have a lot more to put in to that category for you. I think she's definitely someone to consider for OJPC in your office. If that's what you guys are going for, that's basically like her whole history. So if anybody knows, what it's going to take, it's her, because she's a living example of, kids that when you're young, you don't get to go to school, you miss out, and you get on the wrong path. There's so many different variables, and I couldn't possibly, conceptualize them all for you today. But I think if you connect with Tyra, as you know, and you pick her brain, you'll find a lot of the answers you're looking for.
Tyra, did you have anything you wanted to contribute to that?
Thank you, Jamie. The first question to that, of course, we need more treatment centers because of the opiate epidemic, like Amy's movie describes. But however, I think we need to start reforming our juveniles so we don't have to reform our adults. If we can start with our youth, I think a big change can happen, and our youth will listen to people who have been incarcerated, who had experiences like me. I was an elementary dropout. However, today I am a certified tutor, but I can stop the next one from making the mistakes and the choices that I've made growing up. So I want to be that one person that somebody wasn't to me. And I'm sure if we can get more people involved with our youth, I think it can happen.
I think if I had a magic wand to change anything as far as policy was concerned, it would be the policies surrounding sentencing for like first-time offenders. I think that several of us have never been in trouble before, and like some of us got stroked, and it's not fair. And I think that would be a good start. Also, like Tyra was saying, to get involved with the youth, because if we can deter youth from going down the wrong path, that would be ideal.
I think it's just an entire paradigm shift needs to happen. We need to completely change the way we think about people that make mistakes in society.
Yes, yes.
You don't punish your children the way that the system punishes them. And I think there is like something to that. Like people err, people make mistakes. That's legitimate, and consequences I think are important for society to continue. But just I think if you follow the money, we're spending the money on putting people in cages, and we're not spending the money on empowering them, educating them, providing them jobs, opportunities, the things that are actually going to keep people out of the cage. We just put them in the cage, and then we kind of wash our hands of the situation. So I think just in general, there just needs to be a wipe of what we think about who's incarcerated. Because even myself, before I was incarcerated, I thought everybody in prison was like a horrible serial killer, rapist, murderer, awful labels. But I didn't realize it was just people, and a lot of drug addicts, and a lot of people that didn't finish high school. So what's up with that? Why are we putting them in cages? We don't even really like to cage our animals, for real. So just I would just wipe everybody and be like, start over. Who do you think's in prison, and why do you think they're there? Because I bet you're wrong. I bet you're wrong.
I would also add prosecutorial oversights and standards consistently across the board, and total prosecutorial transparency.
I would also add,
transparency across the board.
What was that, Tyra?
I said, and I would also like to add, we have to have equality and equity. If we know the difference, I've learned that through my visits. If we learn the difference with the other needs, meet their needs.
Okay, so well, I did have a question, but you guys pretty much answered them all. But being a nurse and working in the correction facility and also being the cousin of Tyra, I just wanted to tell you guys you are fantastic, and I so appreciate all the support that you've given Tyra. I love you ladies. I've worked in the prison. I've got to sit down. I've got to talk to you ladies, and you are people, and you are worthy of being loved and forgiven. Okay?
I probably have the biggest smile on my face to see you all because it is today, right now, that I have stood out on a limb and to say something such as, I love seeing you on this side of the fence with me. However, I have questions about the movies. I like getting deep about movies, you know, what you think, and you all wrote really good movies. The Devastating Game had me twitching and turning in my seat, trying not to cry, trying not to look away. I'm like, oh my God. However, my questions are these for Ms. Thomas and the Bain. Do you think that when the daughter took the gun, do you think that a life was saved or a life was taken? Not in the sense as you wrote it, as in the sense of if you were watching it, how would you answer that? And then Ms. Spears in The Devastating Game, my question is, we had saw a little girl kind of grow through abuse as a kind of very young and witnessing it, not experiencing it, but witnessing it. And my question is, what age group or gender do you think would most benefit from your film? So those are my two questions.
For to answer your question about Bang, I think that probably taken, a life was taken and a life was saved. It was kind of, there was a dichotomy there. There was two things going on. I had to add a little razzle dazzle, but you know, to juice it up. But I really just didn't want it to be really deep or have any type of, you know, ulterior meaning. I just wanted to simply entertain. I hope you all gasped. I didn't get to see your reaction, but everybody was supposed to gasp when the girl took the gun or at the end, you know. So if that happened, then I accomplished my goal. But just to watch it like on the surface, I think that both. One life was saved and one life was taken because the mother obviously was headed for destruction. Yeah.
And your question was something about the age group. And I think, well, what I found is surely I wouldn't want any little kids watching it. However, I found that I think it's for everybody. I think that, I mean, as far as like ethnicity and stuff like that, I don't think it's just for a certain race. And definitely a mature, maybe teenager. But I think that it speaks to all races, all age groups, because somewhere you can find yourself in that story. Or you could find that you were in that story and didn't know you were.
I'm sorry to say we just have time for 2 more questions.
So first, I just want to say that I don't know any of you, but I am so proud of all of you. This is amazing work, and I needed to hear your stories, and all of us need to hear your stories. And there are too few women who are the ones writing the stories in the film industry. So we've all heard your first one. What are the other things that you think, with this new or improved skill, that you need us to hear about next?
Go ahead, girl. Well, we're glad you asked. Take
it away, Kalisha. Take it away. Go ahead.
Go. Actually, Amy and I are working on a feature script, and we also have lots of ideas for more shorts involving social justice. And so we're definitely going to attack all of the issues that may be controversial, uncomfortable, etc. So we are going to stay along the lines of a social justice theme. because people just need to be aware, and they need to, the word needs to get out. If you're aware of something, you can't ignore it. And until we can admit that there's a problem, then nothing's ever going to get fixed. So we're going to just stick with that.
Last question.
I want to thank you, ladies, for your bravery. I think that's really cool what you girls did. My question is it appropriate, and do you think that there's a platform for you guys to maybe air this film at a middle school?
Okay. Middle school. What? What grade is? How old is that?
6 through 8. 6, 7, and 8.
There's some middle schoolers in the audience.
Sixth grade. So that's what?
At least 2.
12, 13? 11 to 14.
Juvenile system. I think that's where.
Yeah, okay. So I've actually, since April, I've been teaching a week-long screenwriting intensive at Clark County Juvenile Facility in Springfield, Ohio. And I screen these films, and we read the scripts. And
they hated them.
No. Okay, so let me contextualize. Okay, the script the film these young folks seem to gravitate towards the most was Transparent, because it is the only one that is solely from a kid, or at least a kid who's closer in their age than the Devastating Game. And what the kids have told me in the facility was that they can actually see themselves the most in that kid. What's interesting is that they saw their parents in the other films. And I think just like a lot of us, we often work through issues with our parents or guardians, and they're in that stage where they're just working through it, and it's raw, and it's a lot of times painful and emotional. And so I think some of the films were triggering for them because and the stuff they're dealing with. So they didn't have the best response to them. But I screen it there, and we talk about it, and they're able to talk about it. And there's the stories that they wrote. I mean, some of those stories are a lot more raw than these ones. So they can handle it. They can handle it. But it is something that requires a lot of discussion. With the Devastating Game, I only did screen that to the older kids in the juvenile facility. But this is a part of our society and a part of our world, and I think it depends on how you contextualize it and you check in with their feelings and kind of where they're at in their triggers.
I feel like I saw one hand, so let's just do one more. I don't want it to be over.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much. You guys did a wonderful job. And do you speak for all the other women that are incarcerated with you, or do you feel like it's just your story? Because, I guess I could see where you might be a mentor to other women that are in prison. I don't know how they pick you, or if you're just special and they say, hey, you're going to get to make a movie. But do the other women want to be with you, work with you? Do they grow because of it too? I don't know how exposed they are to it like you guys are.
Well, I can talk about how the selection process happened, and then maybe y'all can talk about that experience and relating to other women. So I had a bit of an open call, and it was basically, hey, y'all interested in this? Come to this room. And it was in September of 2015, and I pitched to them the idea, and I said, if you are interested in being a part of this, then all you got to do is turn in a short story, and that short story needs to have an ending. I didn't, and that was like a beginning and an end. Now I think that was like pretty much the only requirement. And I gave like a very quick spiel about a couple story structure concepts, and then those who turned in a story, I gave them feedback. Chinonye style critical feedback that is honest and detailed and compassionate
and harsh,
but it all comes from a place of love. And it was this kind of back and forth process of feedback, revision, and really the 5 phenomenal human beings that you see here are the ones who made it at the end. And so that's how they were selected. And so I think there was also a bit of, what's this about? Let me wait and see until this happens for a whole year, and just let me see. And then people saw some things. And if you all can talk about that, what was that like going through this journey? What did you?
Well, for me, I wanted to touch on the reason I even chose the story topic or storyline I chose is because after being in there and speaking to many of my peers in there, it's like the one bottled up thing. It's the one thing that's keeping them from freedom on the inside. And so I just felt like we need to touch on this. We can get healed from this. Don't keep it bottled up. It's not the end of the world. You can get through it. You can speak through it. You're not the only one. So that was kind of why I touched on it. I've seen a lot of women get healed. A lot of women pulled me to the side and was very grateful and thankful. But just to touch on something that it doesn't define you.
Oh, well, just like the current process for the next cycle, I'll just tell you a little bit how that's going. Everyone is going to Amy for feedback, and although I'm there and willing to help, everyone's going to her for feedback.
We have a sort of good cop, bad cop thing going on. But I think it's scary for people to write something that's even remotely personal and then to ask a peer or someone at that professional level to critically look at it.
Yeah, it's intimidating. Yeah.
There's a lot of fear. But I think also they see the hope. They see, that we're okay. We're doing our time and we're okay and we're fairly normal, as content as we can be. And I think that is very hopeful. There's a way through.
Not only that, we worked as a team and we included the whole compound, actually. Me and Jamie had thrown back ideas, me and Amy, me and all the girls. And we went back to the units and we included our movies with the other ladies and made them more interested in wanting to do it too. So we worked as a team, as a whole. So people were left out, but they wasn't.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.